when I came up with Lily Summers, the protagonist of this story, that she obviously had to be in the art world, etc. But when and where? Well, then I started to find a painting to be forged. As I said, Picasso is the most forged artist and was. He's also the first artist that became a global icon. No other artist within his lifetime achieved rock star status. In fact, here's a funny side note. The word blockbuster, which we take for granted as being a great
Yeah.
1980s video store, actually was a word that began in 1940, I think 42. And a blockbuster was a bomb that could destroy an entire block.
Mm.
And that's why it was called a blockbuster. The Picasso exhibition of 1960 was the first time that word came out of military use and entered the cultural lexicon. Isn't that interesting?
Really? I
Yes.
did not know that. Oh my
That
gosh.
exhibit, it was the first art exhibit that was global, that was a blockbuster. First time the word was used in that way. And so he was a natural. Okay, so if he's a natural, then I've got some place for Lily to be, possibly. And at his death makes a poignant time. Then in doing the research, I also learned, which is crazy stuff, that 1973 is considered one of the most pivotal years in British history. And I was like, how is that possible?
Really?
Yeah, for a country that like stood alone against Hitler for years,
Yeah.
how did 1973 change them? Well, in 73, there were the Yom Kippur energy wars. There were strikes across every sector of the economy. There was super high inflation. There was a 3-day instituted work week because there was an energy crisis. It was the first year the Troubles came to British soil with the Old Bailey bombings. I mean, it was crazy all that happened in 1973. So it made this time that just naturally fit this story of change, self definition, art, chasing down not only one's true identity, but a forger in the process. And so it just kind of all came together really well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I think I know history well. I had no idea all of that was going on in England in
Yeah,
1973.
I know.
Oh,
Crazy stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's totally. But as you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess all of those things would have been happening.
They converged.
And then it just all came together. Um, I can't imagine having such an energy crisis that you would force people to
Oh,
not
yeah.
work.
Do not work. A limited work week. Crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. So when you're thinking about like the English masterpiece, and it's been out for a little bit now, what kind of feedback are you getting from readers and book clubs when they're reading it? Because I know when I've gone to book clubs and they're talking about one of my books, sometimes I hear things that I'm like, I didn't know that was in the book. And are you having those moments where you're like, oh, that's fascinating? Yeah, of course, I totally meant to put that in there.
Exactly. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think about, feedback is really interesting. It's a dual perspective book.
Mhm.
Lily Summers is first perspective, it's her first person POV for most of the book. But about every fourth chapter, you have her boss, Diana Gilden's perspective. And so it creates this cat and mouse game. And what I found most interesting are when people really love or they hate Diana Gilden. And
Yeah,
that is really interesting. I'll be honest with you, I mean, too much fun writing her perspective.
I
Uh,
bet. Because
but yeah,
she
she's not
is,
the main character, but she came to life very quickly. And she's complex and she's interesting. And there's a
yes.
dynamic there that is different. Um, and so I think that's the most intriguing are those responses to Diana Gilden. I've also gotten a lot of feedback. In fact, some, which I love, some saying I understand the artist's mind well. Because I'm kind of like you, Kara.
Ooh,
I would say I don't understand it. I'm not creative in that way. But I do. My daughter is a very good artist. She's an architect. And when talking to her, I realized that although our mediums are different, we
mhm.
use the same language. We speak the same way. We understand each other. And so I put a lot of that into the book, my understanding of the creative process in
Mm.
writing. But okay, let's apply it to paint. Let's apply it to oil paintings and the masters and studying and what self you need to bring to the finished product, etc. And so it's really interesting to hear people talk about loving the art or
Yeah.
Diana Gilden or, all that kind of stuff. And yes, you also mentioned there's a little romance and there always is. But for me, it's never the primary driver of a story,
Mhm.
but it's a delicious little side note I adore.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons I love your book so much because I'm like, romance just for the sake of romance is never going to keep my
It
attention.
never floats my boat. I just can't, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Doesn't keep my
And
attention.
so when I write and when I'm writing and I write romantic suspense or I'm writing historical and it has to have romance, I'm like, oh yeah, they need to kiss. Oh yeah, this should be happening about now. And I'm like, oh, and then there are people like Pepper Basham who are like, can they kiss yet? Can they kiss yet? And I'm like, that's just not. So I love that your books are so complex and there's so much going on, but then there is like a
Mhm.
layer of romance. And so it's great because you've got all of these things going on. So when you think about the book and there is this richness and there's so much going on, is there a favorite scene or a favorite moment that you were like, oh, it was either like a delight to write, or after the fact as you
Mm.
were going back through it, you were like, okay, this killed me as I was doing it, but man, now it's so much fun. And I'm like, it was worth every second.
There are two scenes I'm going to tell you, and like open disclosure, I robbed them from the Thomas Crown Affair and from How to
Mm.
Steal a Million. After writing A Shadow in Moscow, after writing the Berlin Letters, I wanted more of a caper, and I call these
Yeah.
author's notes. And it's a little more complex how it happens, but that wonderful scene at the end of the Thomas Crown Affair, when Thomas Crown is walking through the Met as the son of man, in the overcoat with bowler
Yep.
hats. He's got like 100 of
I
them.
love that scene.
I love that scene. Okay, I basically stole that and put it in the book, called it out, open stealing, in a much smaller context. But the idea of people wandering around and who are you chasing? Then there's a delicious little scene in How to Steal a Million, which of course was Audrey Hepburn. I mean, how can it not be a
Mhm.
wonderful scene? Where she and Peter O'Toole are trying to steal a work of art from a museum, and they're stuck in a closet. And so I had to stick my heroine and the hero slash investigator in a closet for just a few minutes. So I stole both
I
of those.
love it.
But they were so fun to write. They were such open homages to those two films. And that's the first
Well,
time I've ever done that.
well, but think about it. How many of your books have been open homages to
Oh yeah,
literature? So it
absolutely.
totally makes sense that in this book, it would be an open homage to some of those like really, truly great caper type of
Caper
films.
stories. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and it's really fun because earlier, it'll come out later in the book talk season, but earlier in recording, I was talking to Natalie Walters,
Mhm.
whose Spies, Lies, and Alibis will be coming out. And we were both talking about how when you write romantic suspense, sometimes it can get really heavy and issue driven. And we were both like, we just wanted to write something fun.
Something
And
fun.
so, like, the next thing I want to propose that people are interested in is a more of a caper type of thing. And so to hear you say that same thing, because those earlier books that are fabulous were heavier. You can't deal with things like the Berlin Wall
Exactly.
or the
Or
Cold
Moscow
War
in the Cold War without being a
without it
little
being,
heavy.
yeah.
I
And the
mean,
twists that you have in
having
those books
fun writing them. Yeah.
are fabulous. I mean, if people haven't read them, they absolutely have to because they're twisty and they're great and but they're heavy because it's the Cold War and they're spies and it's just dicey stuff. And so that whole idea that,
Death is on the line.
yeah. And sometimes I don't want to get pigeonholed as every book you read from Cara Putman is going to be heavy. And it's funny when I'm like, I need to write something lighter, I bring art in
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
because I'm
maybe
just
that's
like,
what I did too. Maybe I just went to art because I was like, we need to be a little lighter, a little caperier. And it was very fun.
and it comes across. It definitely comes across. Okay. So was there a moment though in writing this book where you were just like, this was a terrible idea. I can't get it to come together. I should just give up and start from
Oh,
scratch.
isn't there always that moment? Oh my goodness, there's always that moment. Um, I'm trying to think with this book when that moment was.
I can't
Um,
imagine that Katherine Reay has
the
those
Catherine.
moments.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely have. For this one, to be honest with you, I had a little trouble halfway on grasping Lily. For a book to
Mhm.
really come together, you need to know that woman well. And I thought I knew her well. And then I get about halfway through the book and she's inconsistent. And
Mm.
that I was like, good goodness, what am I going to do? I don't know what's driving her. And the weird thing is, and this is a total strange thing, I don't know how it clicked into place, but I aged her by 1 year. 1 year.
That's
That's
it?
a total sideline thing. I said, okay, you're going to be a year older. And all of a sudden, she got a little more mature. She figured her stuff out. She was a little more on the chase. And I was like, you're a different woman. And it fixed every problem. Isn't that weird?
That's
Yeah, I know.
hilarious. I wouldn't have thought
It,
1 year would be like, oh,
all of a sudden,
magic
in
fix.
my mind, that year, it just changed her and I knew her, but I was floundering. And what a weird solution to come up with. Like, I don't even know what
Yeah,
made me say, I'm going to age you 1 year and you're going to
I know.
finally get it together. But that's what happened. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put that in my back pocket.
It's so silly sounding, but
Yeah.
it changed everything. I don't know, 1 year of
Wow.
gravitas, 1 year of, decision making. I don't even know what it was, but I just said, you're a year older. And all of a sudden I knew her.
Normally I just kill somebody.
Yeah, that doesn't work in a caper though.
Yeah.
Caperish.
Yeah. You're like, it's supposed to be fun and
This
light. And I'm like,
is
just stab them. Just stab them. I'm too careful where I say that because people look at me and they're like, what?
fun.
So when you think about like the theme of this book,
Mm.
what's one thing you want people, readers, to take from the English masterpiece?
Wow. Okay, so, that's an interesting one because it comes out in the title in a way.
Mhm.
The English masterpiece, it's about a Picasso forgery, which you might think is a Spanish masterpiece. But if it's a forgery and it was created in London, maybe it's an English masterpiece. But it is a masterpiece. Diana is a masterpiece. Lily is a masterpiece. But whose masterpieces are they? Whose masterpiece is Diana? That's a question in the book, too.
Mhm.
Whose masterpiece is Lily? So it is about, in many ways, self identity through art, through expression of self. And so I want readers to walk away with this feeling of, number one, fun and hope and lightness and frivolity, et cetera, et cetera. A little bit of education about art, because that's just cool. But
Yeah.
also this idea that who I am is not necessarily defined by what I've been or by what people have told me I am. Um,
Mm.
that idea of self-definition is ever changing, ever present, ever evolving. And so I think that's part of the story.
I love that. So I thoroughly loved this book, but there's always a next book
Ugh,
coming. And
isn't
so
there
the next,
always?
there always is. And that's the life of an author, and it's never fast enough for readers. But the next book's coming in the fall
Yeah.
of 2026.
Yep.
Tell us just a little bit about what readers can be looking for next after they've read the English masterpiece and they
That's
go back and read the
the
London
entire
House and the
Magnus.
Berlin letters and everything. I mean, there's so many great Katherine Reay books, but what can they look forward to after they've caught up on the backlist?
Well, it's interesting. It is, I would classify it as a spy adjacent caper. So it is definitely lighter than my spy novels, but it does involve a spy. It is about a young
Okay.
woman in 1950, Cotswolds, England. So a tiny little village called Great Rollright in 1950. She's a young shopkeeper and she's obsessed with classic British mysteries. So Agatha Christie and Dorothy
Yes.
Sayers, and she just loves all of those. And she starts to suspect that in her tiny, tiny village, there might be a Soviet spy, a Cold War Soviet spy. So she starts to investigate her and follow her, and it's very caper-esque. But she's right. And sort of an open, and I'm just going to say it now because and I haven't quite figured out how to talk about this, but because it's not a surprise. It comes out in the prologue. But the Soviet spy within her village, the Soviet spy is Ursula Kaczynski. Now, Ursula Kaczynski was one of the most famous Soviet spies on British soil at that time. She ran a huge spy ring, true story, and she escaped in 1950 back to East Germany. And she was not caught by MI5. So I have this little assistant shopkeeper who might be the only one who really knew who she was. So there you go.
Oh,
It's
I
called
love
The
it. That's so fun.
Undercover Bookshop.
It's so fun. I cannot wait
It's
to
so
read
fun.
it. Oh, that's great. So, Katherine, where can readers find out more about you and your books and interact with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a really beautiful feed because it's all me and like it's like the disaster of dogs and writing. But anyway, it's all me. I respond to almost every comment, so join me there. I'm also on Facebook. I will always reply to any email sent to me via my website. You can learn all about my books there, and I respond to my own emails. So really, I am very much out and about. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
easy to
you are.
find me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always just a delight and a treat to connect and talk books with you.
Thank you. Carol, loved it. I've absolutely loved it. Thanks.